pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carry, colors, ready, cut, right, turn, march, forward, march.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joel Smith. I am the President and CEO of Deerfield Beach Community Cares. We're delighted that you've joined us tonight, that you aren't out at Home Depot or Publix buying 17 cases of water and 1,000 rolls of toilet paper, and are here with us tonight. What we're going to do tonight is share information with you that we think is very important. We have a really dynamic and exciting panel for you. So the way the evening is going to go is we're going to bring up in a moment the chairman of the board of Deerfield Beach Community Cares to explain a little bit about what Deerfield Beach Community Cares is. We're going to invite the panelists up and then have some opening comments with them. And then the floor is yours. Any questions you want to ask, we will have a roving microphone. So you don't want to hear from me, so without ado, I want to introduce you to Kurt Schmidt, who is the chairman of Deerfield Beach Community Care.
If you don't want to hear Joel, you really don't want to hear me. I'm Kurt Schmidt. It's my privilege to be with you this evening to join you for this important town hall. My professional work is as a storyteller in the faith-based community. The story of Deerfield Beach Community Cares began in a place of tragedy, first with the murder of 17 people at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, and then with the suicides of Bryce Gowdy and Alexis J. Marion just before the COVID-19 pandemic. The conversations that follow these events centered around two questions. How healthy and well am I, my family, and those in my household? And where can I go to get the help I need to improve the quality of life? Deerfield Beach Community Cares exists to help our residents improve their quality of life, their health and wellness, not by having a professional tell you what they think you need, but by you determining your needs and navigating the existing systems to reach a solution. We are here tonight to talk about depression and anxiety, but we recognize that the conversation on mental health spills over into every area of our lives. Maybe you or someone you know is depressed or anxious because they can't pay their bills, or they're unemployed or underemployed, or they're dealing with a chronic illness, a terminal illness, or substance use, or they're lonely or grieving and in need of a supportive community. Deerfield Beach Community Cares is exactly that, an example of a collective of individuals who care about our community and who have come together to make a difference. As we say, nothing about us without us. As a lifelong resident of this community and board chair of this organization, I'm exceedingly proud of the work we've done to bring health and wellness providers to our community, art and yoga classes to our schools, character building and socio-emotional learning to our young residents, a baby shower to our new and expecting moms, and so much more just in the first year alone. Our story as Deerfield Beach Community Cares is only beginning. Our future together is bright, and we hope that you'll connect with us and get involved. It is also my hope that you find a point of connection tonight with at least one other individual and one organization that you believe can have a positive impact on your life and contribute to your story. And if you hear nothing else from me tonight, please hear this. You are not alone. Your story is still being written, and your story matters. Thank you all so very much for being here tonight.
Thank you, sir. This is a labor of love for many of us, and people asked us what the program is of Deerfield Beach Community Cares, and our answer is always the same. What do you want it to be? Because it's not about us coming in telling the community we know what's right for you. It's about listening to the community, respecting the community, and responding to the community. So all of those things that Kurt was just elucidating are all about listening to the community. They can't be done without a board of passionate people. A small board, but a board of passionate people. So will the board members of Deerfield Beach Community Cares please stand up? Thank you very much. Deerfield Beach's table is right over here. If you want any information about the work that we do, please stop by and see us. But please see all of the providers. They came out to share information about the kind of work that they do and can bring to the community to support your interests, your needs, your neighbors' needs, your family needs. So having said that, I'd like to introduce you to our panel and bring them up one at a time. We are very excited that we have a young student with us tonight, and alphabetically, she's first to come up. So Marwa Ali, please come up and join us. I promise they won't be hard questions.
You wait.
And again, this is a very exciting panel. Next is Dr. Sandra Cumper, who is the CEO of NAMI and a tremendous friend and a person who has a lot to say about mental health and the challenges we face. So Sandra. Don't fall. There are some kind of hills you got going on there. Next, I'd like to call up someone who's become a close friend. We can't make our family, we're born into a family, but we can also pick the people we choose to be with. So out of tragedy comes growth. Michael, Marion, please join us. Apparently your wife won't let you be next to women.
I don't want a man spray.
What do you like, Mike Pence?
Oh,
I don't want to, you know what?
I thought that was clever.
No, what?
Okay, next, we're very excited from the United Way to bring the Director of Training Initiatives, Aisha McDonald. Next, a woman who has taken a job and run with it, created a job that supports our families all across Broward County. Suzanne Nyamora, please come up and join us. And she's got a jet lag. She just got back from Oklahoma to be here tonight. Which begs the question, why Oklahoma? Someone I think you all know who represents you in our area extremely well and very passionately, and is certainly passionate about the mental health of our kids and our families. District 7 School Board Member Nora Rupert. For anybody who knows about wraparound and system of care and how we produce an environment that wraps around our families in a way to provide comprehensive services and supports. We have an expert with us tonight, Dr. Julie Radlauer. And certainly not least, but last alphabetically, is my friend from up north, from Palm Beach County, that does some incredible programming up there, Dr. Suzanne Spencer. So rather than me brag on all these people, what I'd like to do is give them a chance, a brief chance, to tell you a little bit about what they bring to the table, and then we're going to ask some questions and open it up to you.
Hello. Okay, hi, I'm Marwa. I'm a senior at DBHS High School. And I like art, and I plan to study law.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Sandra, Cumper, Boynton. I'm the Executive Director of NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And NAMI is a small organization, but has a big voice because we're the loudest voice on mental health services, access to services, advocating on behalf of individuals who need services, and we educate the community on mental illness. Not only do we educate those who are not diagnosed, but also those who are diagnosed. So I'm just going to quickly talk about an event that we're having on the 19th of November. We have had so many losses to suicide, and November 19th is the International Survivor of Suicide Loss. So we're taking that opportunity to hold a vigil, a get-together, a togetherness of survivors of suicide, family members, people who are thinking of having any thought about suicide, don't know what it is, just want to be there. You're invited to attend. It's going to be at our office at 4161 Northwest 5th Street in Plantation. And if you need to hear more about it, my table is back there. And you're also at NAMI.org. Thank you so much.
So this is an activity that happens internationally. And we've done it in Broward County through the years, and then COVID kind of put a kibosh on doing it in person. And Sandra and her team, NAMI, have stepped up to bring it back and to empower those families who have gone through this incredibly grievous experience as a way of expressing that grief and working through it. So thank you for doing that.
You're all invited. Please attend.
Hi everybody, good night. My name is Aisha McDonald. I am a licensed mental health counselor, as well as a certified trauma and resiliency expert. And I'm glad to be here.
And you have to recognize that she's here, even in the face of a family member reaching the end of their life. So thank you very much for being here. Brian is over.
Good evening, I'm Nora Rupert, and I'm your school board member. I wear a bunch of different hats, but this evening, I will be speaking as a parent of 3 children who were Baker acted in this county, how they are now, what was a hot mess, and now things are doing better. And I came here to not only kick the stigma of mental health, but also to show you the good side, that there is another side and you need to have faith. So I look forward to the conversation this evening. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Suzanne Spencer, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you tonight. And thank you to Delaware Community Cares for inviting me. I have the honor of leading an organization called Living Skills in the Schools, which is a substance abuse prevention program that serves schools, has been serving schools throughout Palm Beach County since 1999. And I'm here tonight to hopefully contribute to the conversation around substance abuse and how that co-occurs with mental illness. And also to let you know that, all the work that we do in Palm Beach County, we now want to extend that work to you all in Broward County and to your schools where we're able. So I thank you for inviting us here. Joel, thank you for having us, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Good evening, my name is Julie Radlauer. I am here as the CEO of an organization called Collectively, and Collectively is designed to focus on children's mental health specifically, and to work together to solve complex challenges, that's the name Collectively. And so we do all things, as Joel mentioned, using evidence-based practices and research-informed practices, and then bring research to life. So I am a licensed mental health counselor. I also have my doctorate in public health. But the work that I do is mainly around social connections and social support and helping communities use their strengths within their community to help meet their needs so that everybody can have better.
Okay, good evening everyone. My name is Suzanne, Nyamora, and I'm here not only as the CEO of South Florida Wellness Network, but as a person in long-term recovery and as a family member in long-term recovery. And I didn't realize until I was talking to Sandra over there that my children graduated from Deerfield Beach High School. And they both graduated there. They went through the school very successfully, and my son had his first episode at the age of 21 when he went into an altered state. And recognizing, going to the Federation of Families Conference, how important it is to raise awareness, but now we're making a huge shift, and that shift is about acceptance. Because our children live with big emotions, and it's not about being aware. We've been aware for way too long. Now we're going to start accepting people where they are and really start integrating and having services available. And we will no longer, in our agency, be using the word stigma, because we've said that a long time. Now we're going to talk about discriminatory practices. Because if people are not engaged and loved for how they are and how they present, then we have a much bigger problem in the community. So today I will be speaking as a parent of young people that live with mental health issues.
So as you can see, Susan is not only passionate, but has shared with you life experience. You know what that means. It means she's been through it, and she's come out the other side. So Susan, you're an amazing person, and we thank you for being here.
Hello everyone, my name is Marion. I'm a survivor of suicide, a father, a husband, and a long-time resident of Deerfield Beach Community, the city of Deerfield Beach, and an active member of Deerfield Beach Community Cares. I'm just here tonight to share my experiences, answer any questions, and do anything I can to make people more aware of what's going on with us, around us, and I can be of any help to anybody. Please feel free to ask.
So what we're going to do, thank you. Is this an amazing panel? So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a few questions, and then panelists who answer the question, other panelists will have an opportunity to add if they choose, but as you have questions, we will pass the microphone. So we have a very, as I said, high-powered panel, but the most important person on the panel is Marwa. So we want to ask Marwa to start the question by saying, what do us old people need to know about what you're going through?
Thank you. I think the biggest issue that teens face today is they may not know when to recognize that they're suffering. So if they have a mental illness, they may not recognize that, oh, I'm suffering with depression, I'm suffering with anxiety, and then when those mental illnesses tend to manifest in like doing bad in school or having mood outbursts, people around them may not know when. They may not know how to recognize the symptoms and help them. Yeah.
Yep. So that's critically important to hear from a young person. And I've never met anybody in all my years that doesn't want to be a good parent, that doesn't care about their kids. It's not about that, but it's about understanding and being open to listen to them. I've had a lot of adults say, my kids don't want to talk to me. They'll tell you everything. You just have to open the door. You have to open the door. Mike, your experience as a survivor, a couple of years down the road now, how are you dealing with it? And I know that puts you on the spot, but I feel comfortable doing
that. First and foremost, I had to, for those that don't know my story, my daughter is Alexis Marion. She died about a mile away from here. She was friends with Bryce Gowdy. December 30th, 2019, Bryce ended his life on Dixie Highway. 56 days later, Alexis and Sandra was stepping in front of a white train. Alexis was very outgoing, very well spoken, good student. We used to jokingly call her a trick baby because she would trick you into thinking you should have more. Since her death, I had to definitely acknowledge the fact that what her loss, what her absence has done to our family, and my wife and I has become a big proponent and member of FIST, Florida Initiative for Suicide Prevention. We go off. In the first year when COVID started, we went to well over 100 meetings via Zoom. After that played out, I surrounded myself with people who've been there, or going there, some are still there. And I'll talk to anyone and everyone. And, you know, it's one thing, if I could say two things for people that may be dealing with the loss of someone, or maybe dealing with their own mental issues at this time. When it comes to Alexis's death, my wife and I had to remember how she lived and not how she died. Because her death took place in seconds. I mean, of course it built up, but it only happened for a second, a minute. She lived for 17 years, and that's what I have to hold on to and try to make a difference any way that I can. How it's been since that time, it's a struggle each and every day. You know, people ask me, how am I doing? If I don't know you and I don't care how I'm doing, truth be told, all I can do is say I'm making the best of the worst and continue to surround myself with positive people. Every one of us has always heard, lay down with dogs and wake up with fleas. I choose not to do that.
Thank you, Mike. Sandra, you were really bobbing your head, so maybe, did you want to add a comment?
First of all, I've spoken with Marion before at the last town hall, and he asked a question, and it was so dynamic then, and you know, we all share the grief, because this was such a public incident, and I'm sure everybody knew of it, and I'm shaking my head because I actually wrote an article in the Sun Sentinel right after Christ died, because it really touched us. But we know when situations get close to us, it's more impactful. And regardless of what we're thinking today or where we are, people dying by suicide is folding in on us. It's coming closer to us. There's hardly a person who cannot tell you that they know or is related to a person who has taken their life at some point. But we also need to know that it's not, and this is such a cliche, it's not the year you were born or the year you died, it's that good dash in the middle, and that's what we have to remember. This is one of the reasons why it was so important for me to put this event on November 19th, because it's getting closer. And I want the community to know that it's not only the people who are survivors today, but it can be any of us. And it's the very same thing we have to think about when we talk about mental health and mental illness. It can happen to any of us. So let us stand up and take heed that we're still promise keepers. We're still there for each other. And I'll just end it with this. You are not alone.
I don't have my glasses on. Was there a hand up?
Hi, Marion Kenny. I'm going to talk to this daddy. We knew your little girl. A handful of us here are in Kiwanis Club. She was a Kiwanian. She was wonderful. Wonderful. So things that you don't know about her that we do, how much we loved her and how good she was to our community. So we also, not just your family, are still grieving over that because we saw her all the time, doing her good things. So those of you who don't know what Kiwanis is, we have key clubs in high school that are doing the volunteering like we do every day. So my love to you and my prayers forever.
So I'm sure you've all seen stories or heard news about holiday time being a challenge, being difficult, particularly in years when we're struggling. So we came together tonight to talk about some of those issues. So Julie, let's start with you. What do we do during this time and how do we access help?
Okay, so at any time, you can access help by all the people around this room. And we have phone numbers like 211 or now 988, which are, access points into getting support. Organizations like Deerfield Beach Community Care offer support to anybody, and there's so many different activities going on that you could show up at something that was meant to be yoga and make a connection where you can get the kind of support that you need by people who understand where the resources are. From my point of view, I believe that there are many people that can benefit from mental health counseling, and I also believe that there are many people that can benefit from having loved ones in their lives. And so listening to people talk about, suicide and, we're all experiencing some kind of mental health condition, or it's closer than we believe it to be. We know somebody that has experienced mental health conditions if we ourselves haven't. I think that just feeling comfortable reaching out to somebody, your neighbor, your spouse, your child, anybody in your community, to say, I'm struggling today, or can you help me do something? That ability to be vulnerable and just ask for just a little bit of help it goes such a long way. And it helps people recognize that when you help somebody else, you feel good. And so if I turn to Susan and said, I'm really struggling today, I'm having a rough day, she now feels good that she can support me and help me. It's hard for me to take that first step to ask for help because I feel really vulnerable, or I feel that I'm being weak or something to that effect. But really, it's very courageous to ask for help. You have to be really strong to ask for help. And just taking that first step to ask will make it all so much better. So it really doesn't matter who you ask. It's just a matter of getting up the gumption and the courage to make that first ask for support.
Thank you. We all suffer from... Go right ahead.
Can you hear me? I just wanted to add on to that. Sometimes we think about help in the form of, I have to have the solution to what that problem is for that person. But actually, help comes in many forms. So help could be, I listen. Help could be, I give you a resource. Help could be, I'm your inspiration for the day. Right? So I think when we think about help and as being the one that has to solve whatever the challenge is, right? It all adds to that. And I think that hopefully could help take some of the fear out of that idea. How do I help if someone comes to me?
Thank you. And actually you sort of mimicked or took the words out of my mouth. So we all suffer from trauma and have traumatic experiences. And they color the way we react to things, the way we behave. changes our brain chemistry. Aisha, you're trauma trained. Can you share some comments on the season and how we may approach these things?
So I'm going to sum up my 3-hour training for you in about 5 minutes. We good? We are on board? When I say the word trauma, or we say things like PTSD, what population usually comes to your mind? Veterans. Always. Every single time I do this, that's the first answer I get. We usually think of veterans, people in the military, people who are coming back from war. And I remember when I was a clinician working in direct service, I had a 13-year-old girl who was going through a mental break, and I had a law enforcement officer who told her, you can't have PTSD, you're a kid. And I was like, whoa, 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 what we're not going to do is. But there are so many things in our life that can affect us in so many different ways and can really impact us and leave us with traumatic symptoms. And I think when we think of trauma, we always think of the negative symptomology, because we can see how that impacts and affects people's lives. And so a lot of the connotation around trauma is usually for the worse and how it leaves us with depressive symptoms, with anxiety symptoms, and leaves us feeling triggered in our regular lives. However, there's things about traumatic experiences that can also teach us, right? And there's distress, and traumatic experiences are distressful situations, and rightfully so. They leave people with a fear of harm, a fear of death, a fear of fatality, whether that's a natural disaster or a car accident, whether it's the loss of a relationship or you're grieving someone. Even your dog. I lost my pet, and I took 2 days off my job. I was like, I can't commit, my dog died. Because that was traumatic for me. It's really subjective to each person's individual's experience. But trauma doesn't always leave us with distress. There's also something called eustress. And eustress is the good stress. It's the productive stress. It's the feeling of, and I'm gonna quote my aunties, because aunties always have a saying. They don't believe in mental illness, but they have a saying for everything. And my aunties grew us up thinking, what doesn't kill you make you stronger? And boy, did I hate that. I hated it. I was like, but I feel like it's gonna kill me though. Or, and y'all probably heard this, it builds character. And I didn't want it to build no more character. I have enough character. I've got many characters inside me. I didn't need any more. But in the clinical sense, those cliches were actually really true, because traumatic experiences can also lead to something called post-traumatic growth. And post-traumatic growth is a concept that some of us have suffered through a lot. Some of us have struggled through a lot. And some of us are dealing with trauma on a day-to-day basis based on the color of our skin, or ethnic identities, or just who we are as people. But that can give us some applicable skills to make sure that when we go through hard times, we have coping mechanisms in place and we know how to deal with it. And so the concept of post-traumatic growth is that I can use these experiences to build resiliency. I can become a person who opens my own agency that now talks about lived experiences and shares that with other people who are going through them. I can be the parent who has suffered loss, who now come and talk to the community about how I have grown despite that loss. And every day is not going to be a good day. Every day will be a struggle, but we still live in spite of what we've gone through. And so I think when we think about trauma, instead of focusing only on the negative impacts and how triggered people get, we also have to look at how people grow and how they enhance. And there's going to be bad days. There's going to be those mental health days. There's going to be days where we don't want to get out of bed because it's particularly hard. But the post-traumatic growth that comes from these types of situations can really impact us, especially those who live in communities where we're a collective. Because as a collective, we have each other's support and we have each other there to lean on.
Thank you. Questions?
I think I want to give this question to Ms. Rupert in regards to the school children, because in our community, no response is a response. But when you're dealing with the Black community, shame, and also with the children, fear. The parents dealing with shame, to acknowledge that there's something going on, but the children with fear to know, I have an issue, and because I'm fearful, I don't want to share it. And a lot of times our children, they get their support from their peers. So if you can address that, that'd be great.
There you go. First question. And first, I want to say that.
Hello?
Close to your mouth.
It's just me.
There we go.
It'll go in and out, I swear. So I'll try to talk. I have an autoimmune problem that makes my vocal cords not work too well. We're all fun to be a political person. We could talk. But thank you for that question, because you're absolutely right. They get their connections from the children that they're around. And if they can share that with them, it would be a perfect world of acceptance. But we know pretty much that they're absolutely frightened to do that. Same way as to not speak to their parents. However, my first son was interacted when we actually got a knock at our front door and the police were there. So I'm thinking, everybody in my house that lives here, everybody's in bed, I have no idea what's going on. And what was happening or happened is he reached out over Facebook and wrote a very long post about not feeling like he could go on, and it was
Very frightening. I'm sorry, I don't know why it keeps going out.
very, very frightening for to be awakened in the middle of the night, and then to hear from the police and have them show us that proof. Because I'm like, it's not him, he's in bed. No, he was late at night, and that's when he gets a lot of his energy, and he worries, and he walks around and he worries. So that made much more sense to me. What I didn't understand is that because the police came and he had a criteria that he had to go. So that was extremely difficult. As a mom, it was extremely difficult as a political figure, because you figured, okay, this is going to be in the papers. I don't care what they say about me, but I don't want my child to have this follow him the rest of his life. And he is doing well, so I don't want you to think there's not. But I can tell you, at schools, I'm worried. I'm worried with the changes that have been initiated since July 1st. I'm worried at the schools where I visit, and some of the books are leaving our bookshelves without a conversation at the board level. Books, wonderful books, are being put away, locked away, and some of them are a very, very important part of connecting, that our children can see themselves and feel, and he, she, they think it's okay then. I'm not the only one with this. I'm sorry, was there a second part? Question?
I think Suzanne wanted to add to it, and then we can come back.
Okay.
So the new skills in the schools is in the schools a lot, as I told you. I think what we see a lot of with our families and with our kids and even with our school professionals, parts of the system are broken, right? Systems are broken all over today, and that affects our ability to trust, right? And when you think about trust, I think there was a great TED Talk, And the doctor who spoke about it, she talked about trust in 3 layers. So first, you have to trust the system. Second, you have to trust the person delivering the information. And third, you have to trust the information, right? So trust is this like big layered thing. And when a system is broken, it makes you nervous about trusting. Or when a system is struggling, it makes you nervous about trusting. But the truth is, well, I believe that the system wants, I believe that there are people in the system that desperately want to help our children. I believe that. And I believe that we don't have to create a village. I believe the village is already there. We just have to find our way to connect to it and build that trust together, right? It has to be a partnership because I believe that's the only way to help our kids. I want to do one other thing, Joel, when we talked about trauma. Again, in the schools, trauma, all of us today, I believe, suffer from trauma. And you're probably saying, well, how could I say that? Because trauma is actually in layers and it accumulates. So think about it. There's something called the small T's. We've all gone through maybe illness in the family, divorce, right? Financial stressors. That would be a little T. Then we have the big T's that many of us have gone through, school shootings, things like that, right? Then you have environmental traumas, political traumas, right? All of those are layers of trauma that each and every one of us have been witness to every single day that accumulates in us, in our lives, right? So think about our schools. Our schools, our kids, not only go through that trauma, but our school professionals go through that same trauma and are responsible for helping the kids go through the very trauma they too have experienced. That's what we call a traumatogenic environment. It's very, very difficult. When you think about help, all layers of help have to go through the helpers and the kids and their families.
Thank you. I'd like to ask an audience a question. I promise I'll get right to you. How many of you can think back to when you were a kid, for me it was a long time ago, and you were doing something, and your mom or your dad or your grandmom said, I hope when you grow up you have one just like you. Did it happen to anybody? And typically, if you were a smart mouth like me, you said, I'm going to be a great parent. I'll never act the way you do. What happened? You did the same stuff. I share that to build on the point. Stress rolls downhill. Our kids watch us like hawks. We are their role model. You are their role model. And they follow that and they internalize it. So they are living with the stress of being an adolescent and the stress that's happening in their home. And it's our job to de-stress. It's our job to listen if we want them to be healthy. And we need to respond to that because it ain't easy. It's not easy being you. How many's got a really easy life? No hands go up. So we need to work together. To Suzanne's point, the village is there if we choose to ignite it. Question?
Not really a question. Terry Henderson, I'm a security specialist at Deerfield Beach Middle School, but I've been in this community for a very long time. I'm hearing you say they need to speak, take that first step. And just to piggyback on what she was saying, I think what she pretty much was asking particular kids and how you respond with them with mental health and what they're going through. And I'm in a setting where everybody's going through trauma. And it's not just at my school, it's all over. And we have a training They do a training, every year, every 2 years, youth mental health training, fitness, whatever. COVID hit. I don't think anybody was expecting that, but it has been a major trauma for our kids. Not just our kids, our staff, administrative security. Recently, we just, as I was speaking with Ms. Rupert, they just approved for somebody to shoot up 17 people and get life. 2 of those people do what I do. Nobody never talks about those 2 people being in safety and security because they always say BSO. I'm not BSO. I'm a specialist at a school, and we lost 2 lives who do the same thing. So you just okay for that person to take my life, and he'll end up with life in jail. So when you're looking at those things, and you have kids, there are certain kids, when they come, you can tell. We can tell, but the teacher can't tell. Because the teacher is just saying, Johnny, oh, he's doing his usual thing. He's acting out. He doesn't want to come to class. He doesn't want to participate. He doesn't want to do this. That's not the case. That is really not the case, people. And they're with us more than they're at home. And when they come with us, it's us who need to take the time to say, hey, he might not say it, but maybe you guys should establish like a group, where we were talking about with kids. Kids get together and come together and have a group at their school where they're able to come and share that. Because they're not going to come out to these meetings, no offense. If you look around, how many kids we got in here now? They're not going to come out. Well, I see you all the time at my school. But they're not going to come out unless they have a parent that drags them out. Okay? I'm just being real, because I was that kid. So I know you, Miss Ali. I was that kid. My mother worked for the school board, and she drug us everywhere. So we knew what was going on in our community. But that's not happening. And COVID has really, people still struggling from COVID and the depression and the effects. I have kids right now because mom was working and making a ton of money. Now mom's not making that kind of money. Mom's not saying anything, but Junior sees how things are happening at home. He brings that to my school. And then he gets in the classroom and the teacher says, well, hey, I don't have time for this today. So how are we addressing that for our kids? Because they all need help. Staff members need help. You don't just need a training that happens online every year, well, every 2 years, because I got to get certified this year. Every 2 years, talking about youth mental health. That should be a daily conversation. A daily conversation with these kids. You wondering why they're acting out? That's why they're acting out. And I'm just saying right now, I was at the last panel in Tamarack, and I'm at this one because this is the community that I live in and that I work. It's not just a home front. Our schools need to take up that issue and stop sitting around trying to figure it out and put action, put in the work. Let's get this done because our kids do need help. And our teachers and staff need help as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to get to everybody. We'll just go right down the road. What I think is important from a village standpoint is a concept that I'm big on called natural supports. And it's the idea that not everyone is going to lay down on a couch and talk to a therapist. But like Julie said earlier, they will talk to their T-ball coach, or to the security officer, or to somebody. And we need to create opportunities for those kinds of dynamic conversations to happen much earlier. When we talk about death by suicide, something that Sandra's been involved with and I've been involved with for quite a long time, that's the tail wagging the dog. It's what we fed the dog in the first place. It's what happened so much earlier that changes the trajectory of life. And so we need to look and make sure that our kids are involved in things. I mean, we got a guy over there who's in business. I hope you all bought cakes, because that is healthy. So the concept of being involved and being engaged. But let's start with Marwa and go right down the road. What do we need to do? How do we support you?
Yeah. I agree with what my security specialist was saying just now. I think we need to have a lot more open spaces where the kids can actually talk and put their opinions. I know we had the Deerfield Beach Youth Voice, and I thought that was very beneficial. I would go back to school and tell my friends all about what we talked about here. But yeah, just more open spaces for kids to really have a voice in what's going on in their community.
So having a voice is a critically important thing. If you're with groups of kids, they will tell you, you're not listening to me. We must listen to what they bring forward.
As a mental health professional, I just so agree with so much of what you just said. We have a broken system. Our system, and I'm going to say Broward County because we're here in Broward County, is so broken. If you look around the room and see all the vendors that are here, they represent a small portion of the providers we have in Broward County. We have so many providers. We have so many innovative ways that we can help people. We have so many people who are passionate, and if I speak loud, you'll see my passion come up because that's just who I am. And yet some people are not getting the services they need. And we ask ourselves why. It's just like as behavioral health specialists, clinicians, therapists, psychotherapists will tell you that they spend so much time doing paperwork as opposed to being with the clients and working with them. That's what our system has become. It's more what this is as opposed to what is required to have our system working in place. So, as a representative of NAMI Broward, I'm going to tell you what we do. We advocate. We invite individuals who have any kind of issue to talk about it. Not just once a week, once a year at a summit, or once every 5 years at a mental health association meeting. I didn't mean the organization, I just went to meeting. We ask you in your small groups, in your little pockets, to stand firm on these beliefs. Talk about what you need to have happen. Talk about the changes you need to put in place. And bring them to the people who can help you to do that. Because that's the only way we will see change in our society. Get together. Now it started with 5 people around the kitchen table. 5 women who felt that their children were not being given the services that other people were getting because of mental illness versus physical health. And those 5 people got together at a town hall meeting just similar to this. And they had 1,000 people in the room who were suffering with the same problem. Now we're over 200,000 individuals. We have a state office in every state. We have a county office in every county, all fighting for the rights of people to get services.
And I don't have to explain why I cried when Chadwick Boseman died, because we lost Black Panther. We're white folks when we go to watch the movies. It's a memorial. But it is so important that we are making sure Deerfield Beach says, for us, not without us.
Nothing about us.
I know y'all would fill it in, right? But it's so important that we're speaking to people who understand this, but also that we're looking beyond those traditional forms of treatment and therapy, and we're incorporating those holistic practices. If people have a faith and spiritual belief, how are we using that to make sure we're really maximizing things as a protective factor in their mental health? You can have therapy and believe in God and pray. If somebody has holistic things that they do for their wellness, how are we incorporating that and making them realize that this is good for your physical health and your mental health? How are we using creative practices, art, dance, music, even social media, to really hone in on what will speak to people, what will get them in through the door, and what we can incorporate to make sure that they're living their best and healthiest lives. Because it's easy just to tell somebody to talk about it, but some cultures don't talk. I've had those clients who come and sit in front of me with their arms folded, and 45 minutes later I'm like, "You good?" "Yeah." And that's it. So we have to really think beyond and really go beyond some of the strengths that these groups have and the collective nature of certain cultures, and making sure that we're appealing to them and bringing them through the door.
Now I have to go after her. Okay. Big deep breath. A few things I was thinking of. So if you all thought that I was actually using my phone for another reason, I truly was taking notes. And this is not your grandpa's therapy. That was a very important concept for me to understand, but for helping our youth. Because if I get a couch and someone's going to listen to my stuff, I'm so tired, I'm going to sleep. That's not going to work for me. Not good. However, I want to say 2018 was one of the worst years of my entire life. I was the chair during Stoneman Douglas. I had pneumonia for 4 months. I was a school board member running for re-election, and there was a false narrative that haunted me and just broke my soul. And that false narrative was that I was and am a racist. Painful, painful. So to say, I don't know how I kept it together, that's exactly. I grew up in a huge family, 6 kids, military family, and you behaved a certain way at home. But when you went out that door, you better have your happy face on, because you're representing the family, which we all know as adults now, how dysfunctional that was. And when my husband and I raised our kids, I'm like, I don't care if you're not talking to so-and-so. We're going to sit down and get the crystal out and we're going to have Thanksgiving. No. I had to actually understand that it was toxic. I did not need to do that with my own children. And take a breath. Don't try to be all things to all people. And that was a lesson for me. So I want to say maybe March, April, May. I was kind of holding it together, not crying at board meetings, and I had a bunch of stuff to deliver to Tomorrow's Rainbow. And I went by there with my husband and Abby Mosher, who I love more than anything. She's the real deal. We grew up as little tiger moms together when our kids were 3 years old. I was there delivering products, not thinking at all, asking help from my friends. I couldn't hold it together with somebody who knew me and was not going to take, I'm okay, we're working it, very tired. That would be my pat answer to everything. I cried immediately and couldn't stop. And she said, girlfriend, you need to go be able to talk to someone about this, because you're not going to continue letting other people on the board be real and you holding it together tightly until you got home and cried. So it's important to understand a couch wouldn't work for me. I don't really like running. I would be very difficult with my asthma, running with a therapist. I don't know. However, horses for a 40-mile trip, wherever it was at Southwest Ranches, saved my life. Saved my life. That was me. Mostly I didn't even ride the horse. I just cried with the horse. And then at the end I asked if we could get dogs for the horses.
because I felt like I was upsetting the horses, so now they did dog therapy to go help that horse. True story. That is me. That's how I think. So I want to flip back to our kids. Midnight, maybe a year or so ago, I hear from someone on my email, and it's a young child who said he went to the school board website and he said, I look like a mom. Okay? I have no one to talk to. I want to kill myself. That's exactly what it said. I, of course, as a human being and as a teacher, I am required to report that. They did. He was, they came into his house, it was for real, there were plans, etc. So I am super grateful that I checked in to this day, before I go to sleep, and first thing in the morning, I just kind of flip through quickly. But that is random. What if I didn't look? You know, so SOS, oh, Save Our Schools. Save Our Schools, which I think you remember Lori Alhadeff, pleasure to serve with her. They are starting, help.
Make our schools safe.
Make our schools safe clubs at all our high schools. So we will be, I hooked her up with Joel, hopefully we'll get it going. But that is children and children. You've got those, and I think that will help a lot. Teachers utilize social emotional learning every single day with their lessons. Are we getting it right 100% of the time? No. But are we prepared to do whatever it takes? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can see that you are too. So, thank you.
So for those of you who don't know, Leah from Tomorrow's Rainbow is in the back. If you haven't experienced Tomorrow's Rainbow, it exists as a free service to youth in our community who've lost a loved one to grief and who may have trouble articulating that grief. So that we have shuttle ponies and small horses. And if you know anything about equine assisted work, horses mirror human emotion. So if you're aggressive with a horse, the horse will be aggressive with you. If you're passive, the horse will be passive. And the kids find the horse that they can relate to. And the professionals then can monitor how that child is reacting and provide additional supports. So if you haven't seen Tomorrow's Rainbow, it's in Coconut Creek behind Tradewinds Park, and it is life-saving. Suzanne, you wanted to say something, go ahead. We were going down the road.
I think there's a question from the audience. I was just going to comment on Joel saying that we were all at the,
I went to college courses for the handicapped, and we were there last night for their event, and it's something that people should know about. A lot of persons equine
assisted therapy.
But we used to call it courses for handicapped.
Correct.
Years ago, I used to volunteer there. What a wonderful, wonderful organization that, once again, people are not aware of.
is that another organization?
That's another organization in Tradewinds Park. And by the way, Aisha's point earlier, we know that horses, lots of veterans coming back with PTSD are finding horse therapy and other animal treatments, but horse therapy to be really meaningful in their recovery.
How many of you know someone with substance abuse? Yeah, because often at the intersection of mental health is substance abuse, right? Which comes first? Am I using substances because I'm trying to hide mental health issues, or are mental health issues as a result of using substances? So I don't have the solution to the question Joel poses. I can only tell you what Living Skills in the Schools tries to contribute as a solution to the problem. And we try and do that in our schools. So at kindergarten through 4th grade, we start with programming like social-emotional learning, and we do that actually through puppets. And we teach the kids things like self-awareness, and decision-making, and coping skills. We also teach medicine literacy, and you know, we would never teach substance abuse at such a young age, but it is really important that we teach our kids about the principles of medicine safety at that age so that when they grow up in their teen years, they understand about the substances and medications. So what do we teach in medicine safety? We teach things like medicine and secrets. Medicine is not candy. Medicine and mental health, right? We teach all those things so that then as they grow up, they understand better those safety principles. In 5th grade, now we bring in our peer speakers. So we bring in young men and women with lived experiences that the kids can relate to. And they share their story, but they're talking about consequences and decision making and impact to the family and progression of the disease, right? And then it's all facilitated by my staff, or our clinical staff, the Q&A. Now, I can tell you, in the last 10 years, I've had the honor of leading this program. The most impactful presentation we have, where kids say, when they hear that speaker, I'm going home to my family who also struggles with that. I lost that family member as well. I thought about doing this to myself. It's the biggest program we have where students ask for access to support services because they can relate to the speaker, to the stories of the speakers. Then we bring in what we call our drug trend series, credible information. So now they're not hearing lived experience, they're now hearing the science behind addiction. And we require in our drug trend series that they have to take the mandatory presentation, which is called Addiction 101. Let's understand how that disease of addiction happens in the brain. What happens to our dopamine levels? What happens to the reward system? Let's understand, regardless of what substance is or isn't, let's understand what happens in the brain and how that's triggered. And then we add on substance-specific information. So we can talk about marijuana, we can talk about vaping, and we can talk about opioids, and we can do all of that, and then we actually add on an experiential onto that. So you've got the Addiction 101, you've got the topic-specific, and now we come in and we're going to do fatal vision goggles, and you're going to actually have a simulated experience of what it's like to black out in the middle of your thought, or what it feels like to be weighted down and you can't have your motor skills to do everyday basic functions. Really, really powerful for our kids. And then we think about our families, because the truth is, there's not enough clinical help today to serve the needs at the rates at which this is happening within our families and our kids. So we have to become somewhat of clinical professionals. We have to know what to look for. We have to know what to ask. We have to know how to at least start recognizing the signs and symptoms until we can get them to that professional that can help with that. So we involve our families by doing a program called Hidden in Plain Sight. And we set up a mock teenager's bedroom, and we hide items that are right in front of parents every day that are signs of risky behavior that we may not know. And parents get to rummage through that room and dig and see what they can see. And then my licensed clinical professionals kind of go through, would you have noticed that toilet paper roll and the bounce dryer sheets? Would we think anything of that? And maybe on their own, there's nothing to think. But when you start connecting the dots, right, you start to see what may be indicators of risky behavior, and how to have conversation instead of confrontation with our kids. And with all of that, I can tell you last year, my team reached over 72,000 kids just last school year in kindergarten through 12th grade in our schools with substance abuse prevention program.
Before we get to Julie, one quick comment, again about natural support. We want to thank Broward County PTA for helping support this event. So right over there. We will be doing some raffles thanks to them at the end of the event. But one of the natural supports is being involved. In Deerfield Beach, we have 7 schools. We don't have 7 PTAs. That's how you get involved. So those of you who Kiwanians that support the school that doesn't have a PTA? Let's talk to Sharon and let's see what we can do. Deerfield Beach Community Cares has joined all the PTAs in the schools that do have them, just so we can be there and hear what parents have to say. Julie, please go ahead.
I think I'm gonna jump off of what a couple of people said. I know. Just to piggyback off of what Aisha was talking about in terms of our system design and how the behavioral health system really is not designed to meet the needs of everybody. So I'm a researcher and I do research in this space, and as a licensed mental health counselor, I was frustrated that we weren't getting the kind of outcomes, well-intentioned people who were coming to try and support others would not get equitable outcomes. And so I did a research study a couple of years ago that was designed to assess Black and brown families to determine if the mental health services that are available to them meet their needs, and they don't. And so for many of the reasons that Aisha pointed out, but when you do talk to families, what they say is that they want to get their needs met through what they consider to be social support systems, which is your friends and your family and your faith. And so another challenge is that when families did say they wanted their needs met in a traditional way, they said that they would want to receive services from people who look like them. And that's really hard to find. And so when working with a group of families who participated in the development of curriculum to figure out how to create equitable services and supports for families, we've really focused a lot on how do we work with people in communities, in families, in faith, to help them create support systems that work for them. And I know that there are barriers to, we don't talk about this outside of the home, or I don't feel comfortable bringing my mental health conditions to my faith-based organization because there's stigma there, right? And so those are all really big things, but then I ask you all is, if you wake up and you're having a bad day, ever happened to anybody? Yeah. You wake up and you've got that really heavy feeling in your heart. If you talk to somebody about it, or even not even talk to somebody about the heavy feeling in your heart, but just begin to have a conversation with somebody, or go for a walk with somebody, or listen to somebody, or listen to music with somebody. Do you feel better? And most people say, yeah, they can find their way out of that heavy feeling. And so when we think about what's happening with our youth between COVID and isolation, that has had a very heavy toll on the mental health of our children, and social media, which has had a very heavy toll on the inauthentic connections that our youth think are their friends. And we combine all of that, it results in an increase in mental health conditions, increase in suicidality, and what we're here talking about today. It's a little bit scary, and we feel powerless, that these are huge problems that we can't really do anything about. But the truth is, we can go for a walk with our kids, and we can talk to them, and we can listen to music with them, and we can do those same things that help us get out of that bad day. And that's the start. And so we have to learn to lean in that way, to create the community that is missing right now, because our system, our behavioral health system, is not going to solve it. Just a personal story, my own son, one of my sons is on the spectrum. And he had the autistic spectrum. He had behavioral health, or behavioral therapists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, all therapies in school at some point when he was very young. But the person that connected with him was the person behind the counter at the lunch. I think there were cookies involved, but nonetheless, that was the person that really he went to and he talked to and he made a connection with. So when he was having a bad day and having tantrums, they could call in all the therapists, and none of that made a difference, but the lunch lady really made a difference for him. And so if you think that we are powerless and we can't do anything because we're not professionals and we don't know how to help people, we just are wrong. We can do everything that a professional can do. And
Help somebody get, and then help.
I'm done. And then help people get to where they need to get to with all of these services.
Me, probably because I have too much to say. This is a very tough topic for me, and I can kind of resonate with everybody across here. But more importantly, there are some things that I'm a parent researcher, because as a mom who's had kids that have had to be called into the office or be called from the school and all of those wonderful things, I'd like to say that our system isn't broken. It was built this way. And if you do the research and the history, it's all built on structural racism. Even the new things that are put into place now that are good for certain people are not for every person. Awesome, thanks. Yoga, mindfulness, they're great, but they're not for everybody. And that's one of the things that we're pushing, social emotional learning. My daughter's never even heard of it. She goes to school out in West Pines. We don't hear about a lot of things, but I can tell you I've gotten more videos of fights in school than I've ever seen. And it doesn't matter what school your kid is going to. Social and emotional learning was put on her schedule in middle school. She's now a sophomore in high school and still knows nothing about it. She does know that the color of her skin makes a difference, and the teachers at her school don't look anything like her. And so there's a lot of big issues, and to Aisha's point, I think we need to start talking about those really heavy conversations, because aside from the behavioral health system, the school system also has some really serious issues. And no disrespect at all to the school board chair or anything, but as a parent, I think that tomorrow is election day, right? I think it's really super important that we need to start talking about voting and really understanding what it means. I had all my stuff out to do the research because it's scary. And these are our children and everything that's going to come forward in the future. Standardized testing isn't for everybody. The amount of anxiety that it causes in kids and young people. I thought my daughter had stomach issues. It all had to do with the teacher saying, well, if you don't pass, you're going to fail. You're going to stay back. You're not going to make it to the next grade, and you're not going to go with your friends, so I hope you're studying. So there's a lot of other issues that are much bigger than just the behavioral health system, and that includes food insecurities. Food insecurities are real, and if people can't afford to get food on their table, you can forget about therapy. It's just not going to happen. And if kids today can't afford to have a nice pair of kicks on, the chances of them ending up in our program is very great, because we did the research, and in our program, we're part of the Criminal Justice Reinvestment Grant, which is from middle school and high schools. The kids that are getting diverted to juvenile justice instead of therapy because they're committing crimes just to survive is appalling. So there is a lot of really big issues that we need to talk about. Drug prevention, harm reduction, all of those things are real life issues, and they're all problems that are being brought forth, but there's no solutions. So we know that there's problems, but what are we going to do about it? And that's why we have the town halls, and that's why parents are stretched thin. They're championing for their household. What happens to the kids that don't have the parents, the ones that are being raised by their grandparents, that need the community members, that need the school security to be able to highlight? I've actually heard her speak more than once, and I love her because it's so true. These kids need to be heard. We're sticking groups in schools that are not done by the schools. They're done by the schools and the people at the school board and other places. They may not be what the kids want at all. My daughter attends lots of community programs because she wants to, because she won't do it in her school, because there's no outcome. I've done a zillion focus groups with kids, and they say, everybody comes and they want to hear what I have to say, but they do nothing with my information. So I know they're not listening, because nothing has changed. So we say that the youth are the most important people, and we have one. No offense, Joel. But it's really about where are the youth and where are the parents to be able to say. Because why they're too afraid to speak up. And they're too afraid to tell the truth because why they get blacklisted. They get known for being troublemakers when really all they're trying to do is fight for their children. And just to be able to fight for equity and access to the services that they're entitled to. And that's where the structural racism comes from. And that's where when we talk about the critical race theory, nobody wants to talk about it. We've got to shut it down, right? Because it's an issue. But it's an issue that's happening in our communities. And as we said, I think you said it, Shavana, when we don't pay attention, or maybe it was a security guard. When we do nothing, what is that saying? When we do nothing. So the most important thing is, what are we going to do when we leave here? What is going to be our role in educating, advocating, and championing for our community and for our children? They're our future. They are our future. So when I get older, those young people are going to need to be helping me out. And that's just the way it goes. And if we're not doing anything to help them out, we're in trouble. And a lot of them are struggling right now. So I'll be more than happy to take a pledge and to stand anywhere with somebody, whether it's a school board, whether it's a behavioral health system, but if we don't make noise, nothing's going to change, I promise you. Julie knows, because when we first started our program, we were tasked with bringing as many families and youth to the table as we could to penetrate the behavioral health system. It got to a point where the clinicians on the other side said, we don't feel comfortable because there's too many families here. That's what we want. We want people to feel uncomfortable so that way our families are heard and our youth get the services that they need. So I'm going to challenge you all to rise up. When there's a meeting, get there, be there, because your voice is super important. And if you need me to come with you, my card's back there and my cell phone number's on it.
Here who will stand by you. So, Susan, I'm with you. And everybody else.
I would actually like to take a minute and just let that sink in, because so much of what she said is accurate. And as I said before, I'm not, no letters after my name, nothing like that. And so much has been said tonight where I wrote a few things down. First, when you said, what do we do? It took me back to, I didn't grow up like I live today. I grew up in a neighborhood much worse than the one around here. I grew up in an environment like Good Times, for those of y'all who know Good Times on TV, and they blew my projects up. I just went back to Philadelphia 2 weeks ago, my neighborhood is gone. And let me just stick to what I was saying, right in trouble. So, as a kid, back to what you were saying, I was often told what happens in this house stays in this house. And it didn't matter what was said or what was done. I was fortunate. I grew up poor. It didn't really matter because everybody around me was poor. But I knew if, whatever the case, I better not go tell my teacher. Those days were gone. If something happens inside that house, and again, I'm speaking as a dad. I'm speaking as someone who watched his daughter. And you look at me, when I speak of Alexis, for those of you who don't know Alexis's mom is blonde hair, blue eyes. At a very early age, she went to school, she came home, she asked me, what am I? When they asked me to check this box, what do I check? And that led to a number of other things. And Alexis was a great kid. Kiwanis, Historical Society, IB program. Alexis finished pretty much her high school requirements in 11th grade before Stoneman Douglas happened and a number of other things led to her depression. So it wasn't as if we kept her depression inside the house. We did. From the door, it was out. And I'm going to say this going back to Nora. On January 16, 2020, Alexis said, hey, listen, I'm going to take a bath. Her friend started texting me saying, is she with you? I'm scared. She's scared me. She's texting me. I went in the bathroom. Alexis has gotten in the bathtub fully dressed. And She took a razor blade from shaving her leg, she cracked it. She cut both her arms. She didn't cut her wrist. She cut her arm. She took the razor with her right hand, so the left arm had a deeper cut than the right arm. Because her friend texted me and said, hey, I'm scared. I broke down the bathroom door. She's in the tub, there's blood, caught, BSO, they come. And I say that to say, when I got to North Broward Hospital, I was tired of the Baker House, the circle, proceed for 3 days. And I sent out an email to every person I could possibly think of, from the mayor of Deerfield Beach to the mayor of Broward County, the school board commissioner, to everyone. And I get a phone call. I'm in the hospital. I just sent the email 5 minutes ago. It was Nora. Where are you? Can I help you? What do you need? Fine. The next day, a large number of people start reaching out. How can I help? And I can go on and say a number of different things, but I'm going to shut it down after this. The important thing that I found out is when you get in touch, or when those agencies make themselves known to you, whoever you are, whatever your situation is, if they don't answer the phone after 5 o'clock, it don't mean a damn. And that's what we found our situation in. 2 days before Alexa's death, actually 24 hours before her death, she was using her phone to call the agency that was handling her case. They didn't return her calls. So there's a lot that was said here tonight. We have to make noise, and I don't mean it in a negative way. We have to hold people accountable. We have to let our voices be heard. Sometimes we got to say things that we don't want other people to hear. There's kids in the room, so I'm going to clean this up and I'm going to pass the mic. Very early on, I was told, you can't save your face and your butt at the same time. Choose one.
Questions from the audience?
Wow, that was so powerful. All right, that's fine. That was so powerful. My name is Cassidy. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm from Deerfield Beach, born and raised. And just hearing all of you, everything just made sense in the line. I just want to piggyback on what Julie said. I work in addiction. There's also peer specialists, people who have actually been through this, and now there are kids who are able to get peer counselor, peer specialist things where if they've been through a Baker Act or anxiety and depression, not saying you can depend on that person like their therapist, but there are peer specialists, especially in addiction. We, as a therapist, we often collaborate with the peer specialists because they get more information than we do. Because sometimes, as a therapist coming in, they're looking at me like, what do you know about X, Y, and Z? You haven't been through it. Even though I may have, sometimes there's like these limits, these really weird walls and boundaries that we don't want to cross, but the peer specialist has been through it, or the student peer counselor has been through it, so they're able to relate back to them. But also something that Julie said, you have to meet them halfway. I know we hate TikTok right now, but literally I had a child, all he could relate to was TikTok. So I said, okay, pick a TikTok dance and we'll do it in session. I didn't want to do it, but at the same time, I told the parent, why don't you just, on Sunday, ask him to pick something, and then maybe y'all can relate and get to know each other. You have to meet them halfway. I hate the app completely, but I do think that builds a bridge, but this goes into my question. What can parents do? I know self-care is such a huge word, right? Bath bombs, go shopping, get your nails done, right? But what is the emotional self-care that parents can do who have kids who suffer from mental illness, especially the more severe ones like psychosis, schizophrenia, bipolar? What are some good practices and resources for those families? Because family therapy is effective, but not all the time.
I'm going to start it off just for a second. So, in the mental health arena, there are two separate systems. There's the adult serving system and the youth serving system. And they don't talk to each other. But in the youth serving system, for parents such as that you are elucidating, we do have a respite opportunity in Broward County. It's funded by the county. And so there are resources if you are involved with, if a parent is involved with an agency, that agency can seek support from the county for a parent to have a day to go shopping or to catch their breath or whatever it might be. Susan, I think you wanted to add something?
No, I was just going to respond from a parent. I do have a son that experiences what we call in my household altered states, which most of you probably all know is schizophrenia or depression with psychosis. He actively hears and sees things, and he had his first episode at the age of 21, and so needless to say, he just turned 35 the other day. And it's been a long several years that I've had to really kind of buckle down and a lot of supports, lots of natural supports. We probably run one of the largest peer-run organizations across the nation, not just in the state of Florida, so we're very well known.
Which he created.
Thank you for that shout out. You didn't even know it, but yeah, we thank you for that because we have a lot of youth peer specialists and adults and family support partners. I cry when I need to cry. I scream when I need to scream. I definitely take a step away when I need to because it's overwhelming and it's scary and it's not easy. And there are some days where I just feel like I want to pull the blankets over my own head and not do anything. But one thing that I've learned is that the most amount of work that I do is when my son is well. That's when I have to work, because when in the midst of crisis, there's nothing that I can do for him. Nothing at all. I gotta let it pass. I gotta hold the space. So I do the best that I can. I suit up and I show up with other people, and I listen that I'm not alone, because sometimes you feel like you're really super alone, especially because I like to say that every CIT officer is amazing. They're not. Sorry, they're not. I've had many of them. I know my rights today as a parent. I know when I can let them in my house and when I'm not. I have a son that is a Latino male, and he weighs about 275 pounds, and his wellness tool is going to the gym. So he looks pretty scary himself too. And when he's in an altered state, sometimes he looks even scarier. But 9 times out of 10, he's going to do more harm to himself than he would anybody else. So I just reach out for a lot of natural supports, as everybody's been saying here. And sometimes it's not an easy time, but I'm grateful for the people in the community.
And just to add to that about natural supports that I think is really important, is it's really nice to be able to do, to have somebody help you when you need help, and when Susan's saying when she's really struggling, she reaches out to more natural supports. I promise you, this woman provides more support for other people than anybody I know. And so it's really great to receive it. It's really, really important to give it to other people. Because when you help other people, first of all, it helps you, right? Research demonstrates that it increases in oxytocin in your body, blah, 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 right? But it also creates what's called reciprocity, which is this, I help you, you help me, and that's the sustainable support system. And that's what we need to build, is that sense of community. So your neighbor needs a cup of sugar, you go get a cup of sugar, the next time you need something, they got your back. And that same process, we need to be able to lean on that when it comes to whatever struggles we're dealing with, because let's face it, we're all struggling at some level. It's just a spectrum, it's just a continuum. You know, in pre-COVID, people would talk about like, oh, there are people with mental health conditions and then there's people without. That is like, it's gone, right? We can all really understand at some level what it feels like to struggle. And then there are times when we have good days and bad days. And you can multiply that times 50, and maybe that's what Susan's son's dealing with, right? But we can all relate a little bit that day when you didn't feel like you wanted to get up out of bed. Multiply that times 100, and that's Susan when she doesn't get out of bed that day. You know what I mean? So like we all experience that on some level, even just a small touch. So knowing that means that you can understand what somebody else is going through. And you can say that you are experiencing what they're experiencing. and be there for each other and build that sense of community. That's what I love the most about Deerfield Beach Community Cares, is that that's what Joel and your community is looking to help you guys create for yourselves.
Thank you. It's about 8 o'clock. How are we doing? Is this an amazing panel? So what I'd like to do is I want to make a few announcements about Deerfield Beach Community Cares. I want to give each of the panelists an opportunity to make some closing comments, and then we'll do the raffles. I hope you'll reach out to the providers if you haven't already, or if you have additional questions. I have a flyer over on the Deerfield Beach Community Cares table with information about the panelists. So a couple of just quick announcements. Deerfield Beach Community Cares relies on, to build on what Julie said, on you. So our next board meeting is next Monday night in Highlands Community Center at 5:30. It's an open meeting. We respond to you. We respond to what the community shares with us. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out to you Janelle, who is our media specialist, and marketing specialist, and can answer any of your questions. Or Gail Schmidt over there, or Jamie Smith, or Darby Munson, our operations manager. So they are all here to answer your questions as well. Two big announcements. We are running a fundraiser for Thanksgiving. We didn't expect you to write any checks tonight, but last year we fed 300 families in Deerfield Beach for Thanksgiving, and we're working on that again. So if anyone is interested in being part of Deerfield Beach Community Cares or supporting that effort, we certainly will welcome that. But I also want to share something that Susan said about really Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's really hard to go get mental health if you're hungry, or if you can't pay your mortgage, or if whatever. And so, with the support of Zion Lutheran Church, the partnership of Zion Lutheran Church, effective on or about January 1, Deerfield Beach Community Cares, Zion Lutheran Church, in partnership with Flippity, is opening a market. We're opening a free food pantry for the community. And the kind of graphic is right over there. You can come over and see it. But it's part of the vision of meeting people's needs where they are, not expecting them to come where we are or where we think they should be. So I thank you for coming tonight. Do you want more of these kinds of things? Of course, you all will come. The point is by getting more people to come. But what I'd like to do is just go down the road, let our panelists make whatever final comments they want to make based on this conversation, anything that they want to share with you, and we'll do the raffle drawings. And again, we'll all be around for any questions or comments.
Okay, first I would like to thank our lovely panel speakers. I feel like I've gained so much just listening to you guys speak and listening to you guys share your experiences. And all the vendors here today, I love going up to you and like grabbing all your trinkets. Also, the information that you guys provide. And I really appreciate everybody that came out today. I feel like it's really important to have these conversations and to have these open spaces where we can converse and we can have these conversations where we know that there's a lot to improve, but we're making a conscious effort to make that improvement. Thank you.
First, I want to say thank you for inviting me and thanks to the panelists because, you know, these guys really know what they're talking about here. And thank you all for listening to us. It is so important for us to get together in these spaces, like Nora said. It is so very important. What is even more important is the fact that we have so much strength that we're unaware of in terms of getting what we want to get done and getting our kids services, getting our kids on the path that they need to be on. We talked a little bit about, it's totally moving me now. But I just want to say we're stronger in numbers. We're always stronger in numbers. And there's so much need, and we see it and we know it. And if we just continue to stick together, one, and to talk, just keep talking, don't ever stop talking. Don't ever stop sharing with your neighbors. You know, a couple of weeks ago, a person called me who is, you know, quite an influential person, and she said to me, she said, Sandra, I'm calling because my 10-year-old, I know a 10-year-old kid who is wanting to take his life, and he has been saying this and he's serious about it, and I know he is, but his mom doesn't want to have him go to the hospital because she doesn't want the neighbors to know what's going on. And I was so blunt with her, and I said, you know, if he does take his life, the neighbors are going to know what went on. So talk to your kids, be open with them, be frank. Communication is the best thing that we can ever share. And also taking care of ourselves by educating ourselves, knowing what you need to know about your loved ones is absolutely essential because it makes it easier. Susan has been doing this for a while. It makes it easier for Susan to take care of her kid or kids because she knows she's taken the time and the opportunity to learn about it, understand mental illness, understand signs, symptoms, every single thing, so that you can help others. So once again, thank you all for having me. And NAMI is always available to you. My team is back there. Thanks.
And remember to attend Sandra's event on November 19th. Don't worry, I'm gonna do you for
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I am a survivor of suicide loss, and so I definitely appreciate opportunities to honor my family member. Tonight's a hard night for me. We talk a lot about our youth, and we talk a lot about their needs. And I think it's important when we talk about our youth to talk about their strengths. Because Gen Z, I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan of the Gen Zers because they don't accept a lot of the things that us as older generation accepted as normal. And they talk out about a lot of things that we kept silent about. And even the younger generation, the under 10s, Gen Alpha, child, they came out the womb kicking. They are ready to challenge us, but in positive ways, right? And so I think we need to acknowledge those strengths that these younger generation are bringing to the table and listen to their voice. First of all, you were phenomenal tonight. Every time you were talking, I was like, yes, yes, in my head. But I think we need to make sure that we're acknowledging their strengths instead of always talking about their weaknesses and what they're going through. They are one of the most politically minded generation of our time because they have access to information that we didn't have. I didn't know about voting until I was in college. I didn't also, shameless plug, go vote. Tomorrow. Yeah. We can't make systemic changes if we don't utilize our rights as citizens that we are a citizen of this country. And as somebody who was an immigrant who lived in this country for many years and had to pay taxes but didn't have the same rights. And now that I have the opportunity, I take it every single time. So please, utilize it. I like to say I don't care who you vote for, but I do. I would hope that you fight and you vote for people who are going to make our lives better in any which way it can be. But I want to just say really quickly to a point that you made, really quickly, 30 seconds. The use of technology with our youth, they were born in a technological age. And so instead of harping on the negatives of social media and technology and how it impacts them, let's focus on the strengths. Let's focus on how they use that for social connectedness. The same way we pick up the phone and make phone calls, they go on social media and connect with their peers. And so instead of shutting it down when negative things happen, watch the TikToks with them. Check their algorithms, see what they're listening to and what they're taking in, and learn how we can utilize those methods of communication to really strengthen their knowledge and also keep them connected in really impactful ways. And also, go vote.
I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. It's a topic obviously that's near and dear to my heart, and it makes me so incredibly proud of this group that, you know, Ellen and I were knocking on doors for years and couldn't get anything moving. And because it wasn't my job of a board member. It's not your job. We'll tell you when you need to show up somewhere for a picture. I don't think that way. Every single day, we get news alerts of our students and our staff. And I can tell you, over the last 3 weeks, how many else?
So many cigarettes, 4 or 5 a day sometimes.
Yes, and then also dying by suicide. So, for me, the shock, I keep thinking I'm at that point where I'm shocked, and then it gets higher, that a Fort Lauderdale student died by jumping off the 3rd floor during school time. 2 years ago, 2nd grade little boy hanged himself. They're in pain when they're little, and we have to help them and help our families, because that pain only grows with you, and you just can't ignore it, and you have to do it. I don't sleep much because there's an awful lot to worry about, plus checking all my stuff to make sure no one's reaching out to me. But I'm thinking this is the change right here. These are the people. We can do this. Not me, but all of us can do this. So thank you so much for coming, and just really it makes my heart happy.
So I want to say thank you for having me here, Joel. My first time out in Deerfield. On behalf of Living Skills in the Schools and my team, who's not here tonight, it would be our pleasure to help in your schools and help with what we can do with substance abuse prevention programming and mental health. And everything I've taken tonight, it makes me think talking, yes, we know is so important, but I wonder what would happen if perhaps we actually had to listen more, and by listening, what would that tell us about some of the decisions we've allowed to happen in systems, right? If we listen to what our kids are saying, what would that tell us about the decisions we've allowed to happen within the many systems? And maybe that's what we have to do. Our kids have to talk, but we have to listen so that we could see some of the decisions that maybe we've played a role in the bigger system of things that have impacted our kids today. And maybe that would change things. So maybe it's a combination of talking and listening.
I'm going to add to that. So in addition to listening, what should you look for? Which is a really important thing to us. Like, what should we be looking for when we're dealing with our youth? And when should we really pay attention, and when should we make that phone call or make a connection? And there are all kinds of symptoms, increase in stress and sleep. But the thing is, they're adolescents, right? And so their behaviors are changing for a lot of them. They used to sleep regular hours, and now they sleep adolescent hours. Go home from school and take a nap when they never did that before. Or they're more isolated and not comfortable talking to people. What you really want to be looking for is a drastic change in their behavior that's impacting their function, right? So if you have a teenager who's sleeping a lot more, well, they're doing a lot of growing, so they might be sleeping a lot more. But if they're not getting up to go to school, or they're not getting up to go hang out with their friends because they're sleeping, or they're not getting up to get online with their buddies to play video games because they're sleeping, and you recognize that they're sleeping through meals, that kind of thing, that's something to pay attention to. So a drastic change in they used to be really shy, but now not coming out of their room. Right now, not coming out of your room is a teenage thing, but physically not being able to come out of the room, we need to lean in on that. They're having mood swings, that's a teenage thing, right? So that we get confused and we don't know what to do, but they can't pull it back together, and they're crying with no control over their emotions. That's something we need to pay attention to. And for parents, it's confusing. It's a really fine line. You know, you don't realize it's happening until you realize it happened sometimes, right? But so when we're listening and really listening, just to speak about the social media very quickly, I have a son who spends a lot of time on TikTok. And I did the show me what you're watching, I want to show you what I'm watching kind of thing. And I showed him something really funny, just saying. So then he shows me what he's watching, it was completely depressing. And when I sat there and watched it with him for a minute, and I got into his space and had a conversation about what is it that you're watching? What does this make you feel like? And how frequently do you watch it? For me, okay, I need to pay attention to what he's doing. But if I hadn't taken the time to spend some time with him in his space, I wouldn't have gotten there. So it's really powerful and important to do that, even though we don't want to do it, because that is how we make amends. And we do have to, meet them where they're at, but we have to learn how they communicate. So I might not like it, but it's something that we have to do. So I just encourage you to listen to what they're saying, and not just listen with your ears, because a lot of teenagers won't talk, but listen with your eyes and with your heart, and with your instincts and your gut, to make sure that you feel it. Because as parents, you know what's happening with your kids.
All right, I just wanted to say, be proactive, not reactive. I know it's really hard not to want to let your emotions get the best of you and be reactive. I've done that many, many times and it doesn't work. And to Julie's point, when you're connecting with somebody, we automatically want to get into that problem solving, that solution focused type of deal. But sometimes when we stop, we pause, we listen, and we connect with that heart-to-heart connection, it makes a huge difference. And that includes when you're working with individuals, and I've had the privilege, and I say privilege, and honor to work with so many people within the community that have tremendous needs, and if it wasn't for being proactive and to ask the why and not accept the no and ask for an appellate, because there are appellate boards to everything. And if somebody says no, it could be a no because you simply forgot to check off a box on an application and they're denying something. Always investigate beyond further. And don't let your emotions get the best of you and hijack you, but just be proactive and find collaborations within the individuals and the providers that you're working with, or the school systems that you're working with, because you just don't know what's showing up in the interaction that you're having with that person that day, because it could be their personal stuff that may be showing up, and you just happen to be the person that's in front of them for that moment. So just ask the why and continue to keep raising it up to the next person if you're not getting the answer that you need or the support that you need, because there are those people that want to help you. And sometimes we as providers, I'll put myself in that, as a provider, sometimes I'm exhausted and I'm tired and I'm just not doing it. But when I put my humanness back in it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it, but give me a minute to catch my breath or to at least get something in my stomach. And sometimes that's a direct reaction of a provider. So I don't want to say that providers do everything in disarray. They don't. They really want to help the community, but a lot of the workforce is stretched very thin, including the school system. So with everything, I just really want to say be proactive, not reactive. And if you're going to complain about something, be about it. Show up, suit up and show up, and make a difference in our community.
I've been joking with her all night about dropping the mic because she says some really profound things. I'm just keeping it brief. At the start, Joel asked me what I learned in the last 2 years. I think the most pertinent or visible thing that I've learned is 9 times out of 10, probably more than that. When I'm in an environment like this, I'm probably the only black male in it. And I would encourage everyone, not just black men, to come in here and say what they need to say. Last thing I'm going to say is, last time I heard Alexis laugh, she was in a room full of BSO officers, and one of them's in the back. And I just want to say thank you, because they're not all bad. Most of them are pretty damn good.
Thank you. So, I think what we've heard tonight from some incredibly powerful speakers is that we're all unique. We all have these bodies, but we're neurodiverse. We're unique. These things work differently. And we need to be respectful of people's differences. So my teachable moment is, nobody would ever say somebody committed a heart attack, right? No one would say somebody committed cancer. But yet we say people committed suicide. Think about that. That disrespects the struggle that that person is going through. So if I can leave you with one thing tonight, it's to think about the adrenal glands that are sending stress chemicals through the brain, that are changing the brain chemistry, that puts that person in so much pain that they need release from the pain. And when you think of someone who's taken their life or who's at that risk level, we need to help them ameliorate the pain. So I'll give it up for these people. Does everybody have a raffle ticket? Everybody has it. Please take your ticket out. Sharon, are you going to pull the winners? We have to. You don't have a ticket yet? Well, let's give her a ticket. Everybody get your ticket out. Providers, y'all got tickets? And we need to thank our providers for coming out on a work night as well. I hope you all have a chance to circulate and talk to them. You want to bring a ticket? Do you want to bring the tickets? I'm afraid they'll feed back if I come over there. Okay, everybody now has their ticket, right? Sharon Kozlowski, birthday today.
Happy birthday!
A gift card to Tijuana Flats, the last 3 numbers, 0, 2, 1.
Yay, Wendy!
We have another Tijuana Flats gift card. Last 3 numbers, 0, 0, 0. Triple 0, who's got it? Okay. Last 3 numbers for Tijuana Flats, 0, 1, 2. Next is a Starbucks gift bag. $998. A second Starbucks gift bag. 018. 018. Is that you, young lady? Hey, I hope everyone bought cake from Trent, by the way. The final Starbucks bag. James Bond. 007. This is the big one. It is a $50 gift card to Spa Finders. And the winner is Joel. Oh, no. 022. 022.
Oh, it's me.
Is it really?
It is. Congratulations.
And that's it, that's all.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you to our PTA, to our Deerfield Beach crew. Please come on over and check out the table and get information. Come back again.